For the longest time, the whole world believed one thing with absolute certainty, that Prince Harry would stand by Meghan Markle through anything. People thought his loyalty was unshakable, that nothing and no one could come between them. He gave up his home, his titles, and even the comfort of the royal family just to be with her. He walked away from everything he had ever known because he thought he was protecting love. But something has cracked, something so deep inside their marriage that even people closest to them are quietly whispering, Harry has finally woken up. And this shift didn't come from a dramatic fight or a big public meltdown. It came from Harry himself, something he revealed, something he finally admitted, something that left Meghan blindsided. And once this truth came out, it exposed fractures that were always there, just hidden under glamorous interviews, polished photos, and carefully curated speeches. To understand how everything started breaking apart, you have to go back to the moment when the first tiny crack formed without anyone noticing. It was February 2018, months before their wedding. The world was obsessed with Harry and Meghan's love story, but inside the palace, something strange was happening. Harry had sent an official email, a formal message that later ended up as legal evidence. At the time, most people thought the email was boring, routine, protective. But buried inside, it was one line, one sentence that changed everything. Harry wrote, I can't begin to tell you what it will say about the institution if this isn't resolved before the baby's arrival and the wedding. Normal readers would skim past that line. But people inside the palace, they froze. Because there was a massive problem. In February 2018, there was no baby, no announcement, no bump, not even rumors, nothing. So why was Harry writing about a baby's arrival months before the wedding when no pregnancy had ever been confirmed? There were only two possibilities. Either Harry was imagining their future and speaking with hope, or Harry genuinely believed a baby was already on the way. And from the tone of that email, the urgency, the stress, the frantic concern, it didn't sound like hope. It sounded like panic. It sounded like a man desperately trying to get things in order before the world discovered something he wasn't ready to reveal. And that one line, that one slip, became the spark. Suddenly, the palace staff realized there was a much bigger story behind Meghan's calm smiles and Harry's emotional rush. Because if Meghan had told Harry she was expecting, everything suddenly made sense. As soon as that email landed, quiet chaos began swirling in the palace halls. Staff whispered behind closed doors, confused and unsettled. Nobody could confirm anything medically. No doctors, no appointments, no reports. Nothing except Harry's intense emotional insistence that something needed to be solved before the baby comes. That line echoed through every meeting, every phone call, every late-night discussion. Everyone felt like they had been shoved onto a countdown they never asked for. And Harry, he wasn't acting like a prince. He was acting like a man terrified that everything would collapse if the world discovered the truth too early. Every delay made him anxious. Every slow step frustrated him. Every protocol became an obstacle. And still, the same question haunted the palace. If Meghan was pregnant, why couldn't anyone confirm it? But Harry wasn't thinking logically. He was in love. Emotionally, fiercely, desperately. And that love made him believe every word Meghan told him. This was the beginning of everything. Their engagement, which should have taken years, suddenly became a 6-month sprint. The palace was forced to bend its slow, traditional schedule to match Harry's panic. Even senior royal aides whispered, this is not normal. The Queen herself asked for clarity more than once. And always, the same pressure point returned. It must be done before the baby arrives. That one phrase became the engine behind their rushed wedding. Meghan, of course, looked effortless, smiling, polished, glowing. Harry, on the other hand, looked tense, overwhelmed, and emotionally charged. Behind the picture-perfect interviews, the smiling engagements, and the glamorous photos, there was a prince racing toward a wedding he felt he didn't have a choice about. Palace insiders saw the deep truth before Harry did. This wasn't a fairy tale romance guiding the timeline. It was pressure, it was fear, it was urgency coming from something no one else could confirm. And here's where everything takes a darker turn. By March 2018, something strange happened. The frantic urgency suddenly disappeared. No more talk about the baby. No more countdown. No more panic. It was gone, as if the whole crisis had evaporated overnight. According to quiet whispers in royal circles, Meghan allegedly told Harry she lost the baby. A deeply personal heartbreak, yet the timeline raised eyebrows everywhere. The supposed due date didn't match anything. Not the wedding, not the months before, not anything. And the strangest part? Harry didn't act devastated. He didn't grieve. He acted relieved, like a man who believed the storm had passed. Staff noticed. The Queen. Everyone closest to the situation noticed, and the question grew louder and louder. Was there ever a baby at all? Because when Archie was born in May 2019, almost 2 years later, it became undeniable. The timelines did not match. Not even remotely. This is when the palace realized something crucial. Harry wasn't reacting to reality. He was reacting to belief. And belief, especially when wrapped in love and emotional wounds, can control a person more powerfully than any rule or tradition. But the pregnancy confusion was only the beginning. Meghan displayed a pattern, a strategy, a set of emotional masks she switched between depending on what she needed. There was the victim mask, soft voice, watery eyes, gentle fragility. Whenever she wanted Harry's empathy, this mask appeared. And Harry, a man who carried lifelong emotional wounds from losing his mother, reacted instantly, protectively, fiercely. Then there was the partner mask, where everything became us versus them. Every disagreement with the palace became a battle fought together. Harry, already distant from royal protocols, clung to this version of Meghan. And then there was the star mask, the confident, camera-ready Meghan, the charm, the charisma, the presence that made headlines. Whenever she needed influence, she knew how to shine, and Harry dimmed right beside her. People whispered that she had found the emotional combination that unlocked Harry's decisions. Not with manipulation through anger, but with precise timing, emotion, connection, pressure. By the time the wedding arrived, the palace staff already knew the truth. The marriage wasn't built on a steady foundation. It was built on urgency, on fear, on emotional pressure. And once Harry said, "I do," something heartbreaking happened. The urgency disappeared because its purpose had already been fulfilled. After the wedding, life moved forward. They left the palace, supposedly chasing freedom. Montecito looked like paradise, sunshine, a mansion, endless opportunities. Harry told friends he finally felt free. But freedom without structure slowly became another prison. Meghan thrived in California cameras, interviews, brand deals. She shined. Harry, however, felt lost. He wasn't a prince anymore. He wasn't a royal figure. He wasn't even the rebellious changemaker he once thought he'd become. He felt like a supporting act, an accessory in a brand that revolved around Meghan. And inside that massive Montecito mansion, the silence between them grew louder. Everything, every single thing traces back to that one email. That one sentence Harry wrote years ago, before the Chrysbay, baby's arrival, and the wedding. He didn't know it then, but he had written the prophecy of his own future. A future shaped by pressure, urgency, belief, and the heartbreak of realizing that sometimes you weren't tricked by someone else. Sometimes you tricked yourself. Harry thought love would heal everything inside him, that Meghan was the one person who chose him for who he was. But as time went on, he began seeing the truth, the cracks, the illusions, the pressure disguised as urgency. Now the world still sees Meghan smiling brightly. The cameras still flash, the brand stays strong, but Harry, he walks quietly beside her, not as a prince, not as a hero, but as a man haunted by that one moment, that one line, that one truth he didn't understand until it was too late. Cracks don't begin with scandals, they begin with sentences. And Harry's sentence has echoed for years, louder, now than ever before. Because the fairy tale is fading, the illusion is cracking, and the world is watching to see what Harry does next when the pretending finally stops. And the heartbreaking part is, Harry didn't realize the weight of that sentence until years later, when the noise finally faded and the truth had nowhere left to hide. Because sometimes real clarity doesn't come during chaos, it comes in the quiet moments, when the cameras are off, the interviews are over, and the brand doesn't need to sparkle for a few hours. That quiet is where Harry started noticing things he had ignored before. The way certain decisions didn't feel like they were his. The way every major step in their relationship felt rushed, pressured, emotional, but never steady. The way his identity slowly shifted from Prince Harry to Meghan's husband until he felt like a background character in his own life story. And the saddest part? He didn't blame her at first. He blamed himself. He thought maybe he wasn't adapting fast enough. Maybe he wasn't modern enough. Maybe he wasn't built for this new life. But the truth he kept avoiding eventually cornered him. No matter how hard he tried, He could never outrun the feeling that something wasn't adding up. Those early incidents, the ones he dismissed as misunderstandings or emotional moments or just love, started replaying in his mind. The email, the urgency, the sudden disappearance of the baby situation, the shift in Meghan's attitude right after the wedding, calm, collected, as if the pressure had served its purpose and was no longer needed. Once the adrenaline faded, Harry was left with quiet conversations and even quieter realizations. He began noticing patterns. The way Meghan's emotions always arrived at exactly the right moment. The way every disagreement somehow turned into Harry defending her, protecting her, choosing her over everyone else, even when the situation made no sense. It was like every emotional moment had been a door gently guiding him in a certain direction. He didn't see it then. He was in love. Completely under the spell of someone who knew how to speak to the wounded places in his heart. The places that still remembered Diana. The places that still craved unconditional loyalty. The places that had always felt misunderstood inside the royal family. And Meghan, she understood those wounds better than anyone else ever had. She stepped into them with perfect timing, comforting when he felt lonely, passionate when he felt rebellious, fragile when she needed him to defend her. It wasn't loud manipulation, it wasn't dramatic, it was soft, emotional, strategic, the kind that doesn't feel like control until you look back years later and realize how many decisions were never really your own. Even in Montecito, where everything should have been peaceful, that emotional pattern continued. There were moments when Harry felt like he couldn't breathe without checking if she approved. He didn't just lose the palace, he lost himself. He thought moving to California would free him from pressure, but instead, he stepped into a new world where everything was built around Meghan's image, her brand, her spotlight, her ambitions. Harry wasn't the rebel prince anymore. He wasn't the hero escaping the royal chains. He was the man holding the camera, the man giving emotional support, the man standing off to the side while she shined. And slowly, painfully, he realized he missed something he never thought he would structure. Purpose, identity, the sense of belonging that came from being part of something bigger than himself. But instead of admitting it, he stayed quiet. He told himself it was just an adjustment, that he chose this, that love required sacrifice, that he shouldn't complain. But deep inside, he felt the cracks widening. The world still sees him smiling beside Meghan during events. They still see him holding her hand, guiding her through crowds, nodding during interviews. But what they don't see are the moments after the cameras turn off. The moments where Harry sits alone in a massive living room, surrounded by silence that feels heavier than any royal duty ever did. The moments where he wonders how much of his life has been driven by fear disguised as love. The moments where he replays that one line he wrote in that email, realizing it shaped his entire future before the baby's arrival and the wedding. That sentence wasn't just a mistake. It was the first sign that the life he was building wasn't built on mutual certainty, but on pressure, on urgency, on emotional timing. And now, years later, Harry finally understands what that early version of himself didn't. You can't build a lifelong future on a brief moment that was never real. And now that he sees the truth, truly sees it, the real question isn't about Meghan, the palace, or even the marriage. It's about what Harry does next, when the illusion finally stops protecting him and starts suffocating him.